Welcome everybody. My name is Marr. I'm going to, I suppose, be the MC as we kind of go through this today. First of all, our welcome slide here has a link to the slides if anyone likes to have their own copy or be able to click on all the various things that I'll say you can click here on. You'll actually be able to do it, but that's also down here, so you don't need to get it right now. Can we go ahead and go to the next one, please? Awesome. All right. First of all, who's the ICC? This picture actually is from, I don't know now, 3 years ago, something like that. There we go. I got some nods. Where we did our first thing as an organization. We came together and cleaned up the graffiti that was at the time on the walls of Vinegar Mill area. And kind of all over, there's a lot down there. We cleaned all that up, that was one of our first things. But basically, we're a group of outdoor enthusiasts. I don't say just climbers because almost every one of us is involved in at least one other outdoor recreation thing, whether it's mountain biking, trail running, kayaking, fishing, hunting, whatever. We're a group of a lot of outdoor rec people. And the thing we have in common also is that we like to climb. A few years back, I was climbing in an area, found out later that I've been trespassing. We're not supposed to climb there. Haven't been back since. But I was like, well, why not? Why can't we climb there? It's silly. This is obviously climbable. People are doing it all the time. There should be a way to open it up. And I was put into contact with some other people who were also asking similar questions. Luckily for me, a few of them were lawyers, and we were able to get all the paperwork done and become a state and then a federal nonprofit. And that was kind of the beginning. Since then, we've expanded. We're now an Access Fund affiliate. They are a large nationwide organization that protects and expands rock climbing in the states here. So that's a little bit of kind of where we came from, who we are. This would be our fifth event at Muscatatuck. We've done 2 graffiti cleanups here. We built a bridge on one of the trails. We did Rock the Park, a rock climbing competition, which we'll talk more about later, no spoilers. And then here we are. So we've been here a few times. This is kind of our home base before climbing was closed. There's other climbing in the state, but this is certainly the most, or was the most accessible. People could easily drive up pretty close to the crags. You didn't have to hike very far, and there was a lot of it in one very concentrated area. So even though you can go out to some people's private stuff here and there, and Hoosier National Forest, this is certainly, or was at any rate, the most accessible, easy to get to climbing. All right, next bit. And of course, that was the first of 5 parts. We're trying to break it in. You guys, if you didn't, there were agendas up front. And if you didn't grab one there, you can also click it there if you scan the QR code. Again, QR code one last time on the slides before we move away from it. And then links to our website. We'll be referencing our website several times as we go. A lot of good stuff on there. But that's just some housekeeping stuff. All right, next slide, please. I already talked a little bit about who we were, but our mission, the Indiana Climbers Coalition, is committed to promoting and expanding rock climbing in the state of Indiana that is focused on accessibility, conservation, and community. Here are some pictures of some of those things I mentioned, the cleaning of the graffiti and the building of the bridge. Yeah, that's who we are. That's what we strive to do. Good stewardship, take care of places, and build a good sense of community around it. Next slide, please. Our goals. So where are we going? Here's our roadmap. Our goals for today is to convince you that rock climbing should be reopened here. All right, give you some good compelling reasons why it should be a thing, why it's a good thing for the community, not just locally, but statewide, and also convince you that the concerns that have been brought up, the reason it was closed that we've been told, why we think there are workarounds and ways to work around that and address it so that we can have climbing. That it's not just we think it's a good idea, but we think it's a possible, very possible idea. Next slide, please. As we're going through this, by the way, I'm going to be trying to sell this, but it's something that I really believe in. Sure, I want to be able to climb, but there's a reason I'm in the climbing community and I enjoy it so much. Hopefully we can get you some of that. Anyway, what do we already know about climbing? I'm going to, every time we have one of these, talk about the pictures a little bit. Every one of the pictures in the slideshow here today actually were taken somewhere at the park. There's one I'm going to quiz you guys on a little bit later, see if you can spot it. It's a very small sliver of a picture, but I bet some of you, probably Greg, I don't know, somebody will probably be able to get it. But anyway, just look at this, you know, sense of community we're talking about. All those people ready to catch that person working on that boulder problem. Was this, can Teri or Greg say, what was this picture from?
That was Roger Park.
The first one?
No.
Oh, that was, oh, nice, cool.
And I believe that's a Bloomington crew.
Nice, cool. Well, I was somewhere then. Probably know some of those people. All right, next up, if, there we go. This one's gonna be Greg. Who better than to talk about the history of climbing at the park than Greg Martin here. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Greg. Greg Martin. I'm Jennings County Park and Rec Park Director, and I'm not in the way. I don't think so. I've been the director for 27 years. I'm an employee of the department for 30 years. I've been climbing for approximately 38 years. I'm Muscatatuck Park. This is we got toggle to mine. And Muscatatuck State Park was created in 1921. Actually, it was Venegarville State Park originally. It was Indiana's fourth state park. The name was changed in 1922 to Muscatatuck State Park. The park was handed back to Jennings County in 1968 and is managed by Jennings County Park and Rec Department. I started bouldering on the park in 1991, approximately 33 years ago. I graduated from Purdue in 1991. I took a job at the facility. At the time, I had about 5 years climbing experience. I learned lead climbing through the Purdue Outing Club. I climbed in Tennessee, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Colorado, and of course Red River Gorge before bouldering at the Muscatatuck Park. I moved on the property that year in a small apartment. At the park, the office problems went pretty quickly, mostly the easy ones and a few harder ones. In 1992, John Sherman came to the park. He and I worked on and put up the classic Yurtle, as well as what the hell is a Hoosier. And John also put up Hoosier Daddy at that time. And if you don't know who John is the creator of the bouldering scale. V is for Vermin, and it was very interesting to climb with him. So in 1993, I became a solid red 512 climber, but I was also an avid traditional climber as well as a boulder. At this point, Mike Duncan, Greg Purnell, and I, we were the main developers, really the only ones. And then in 1993, I created the first bouldering guidebook. At that point, we identified about 10 walls off of the park and other areas in Jennings County. At that point, the cinders were still here. This pile, 125 foot long, that still lasted for quite some time. And you can see, it's not really the way you want to manage a park. And that changed over time, but there was a little duration before this got cleaned up. Well, in 1994, I moved to Colorado. I developed into a solid 513 climber. I climbed mostly rifle, shelf road, but really all over the state. At that point, rifle was the hot spot of climbing in the U.S. It was not uncommon to see 50 of the best 100 climbers on any given weekend. And so that was really helped me develop as a climber, and it was a great period. I was also a regular at the Horseshoe Reservoir Boulders, kid from another gym. Then also I developed an assisted development of about 40 sport, 8 and traditional climbs in the Poudre Canyon. I spent 51 days at the Electric Ocean, and to get up there, it's about an hour hike just to get up to it. In 1997, I moved back to Muscatatuck Park. I wanted to get back in my degree and also work in natural resources and parks. And I was also contracted out to do my second 5-year master plan for the department. And once I got back, basically got back to the boulders. I wanted to do every single boulder problem I could do. I lived on the property, so I was pretty motivated. So I lived on the property for about 15 years as a religious climber. So I put up most of the problems under B7 and under. Traffic was still low for quite some time. You had every once in a while, a few hard boulders would stop by. Anthony Savioli put up the Thigh Master. Rich Purnell put up the first V8, which is Halloween. Brian Boyd established the classic splash tours. In 1999-2000, JCPR was awarded it was near $250,000 grant to clean up the vinegar mill. And we also cleaned up the cinders. Before and after is the Kundalini. That was the smallest pile. Well, also we built the shelter. We can go to the next slide. Definitely cleaned the area. But we built the shelter, redid the parking lots, put in landscaping. At that point, Kundalini was basically 1/3 covered, and Kundalini was the first problem I did after the cinders were removed. So it was 65 truckloads of material that was hauled out, buried in this cliff line. It was over about 1,000 cubic yards of material. And in 2000, this is the area when it's cleaned up. And so it's night and day. We have pictures on the back over there, and it's really quite embarrassing that Jennings County would trash Indiana's Forest State Park. But we cleaned it up. So in 2000, the state of Indiana was starting to the process of modifying Indiana code to be more liability friendly. It was more geared towards skate parks, but extreme sports in general. That's Senate Bill 141, roughly 2000. So I sat down with the county attorney, and he agreed that JCPR should go ahead and market the park in extreme sport mode. So this came from the county attorney, he and I working together. At this point also, we started to market the park, we started to market the sport in 2001. I created a guidebook. It was lived online for a good amount of time. And then the mountain project came around roughly 2008, but you only had select climb. So our guidebook was comprehensive. In the Red River Gorge, which is not Muscatatuck, but keep the timeline flowing. At this point, I was in the red. I was putting up crags, putting up routes at various crags, notably the Sanctuary and the Solarium and Muir Valley. Very lucky to be a part of that. And that was a byproduct of the Red River Gorge Climbing Coalition. So that's one reason why I mentioned it here, is because they are the model association for the country, and we've done a good job. You've done a good job working with the coalition. So Andrew Gearing would stop by every once in a while. Here he is. He put up the contortionist. Eric Gifford established the first V11, which was testified. I don't think it's had a second. But then it testifies a difficult exit out of Brian Boyd's commencement. But I don't think it's had a second. As the sport grew, so did the popularity of the area. Strangely, I got on the cover of Outdoor Indiana. Removing the cinders is my environmental claim to fame. And this is my claim to fame, right? My hand, right? Keep my ego in check, right? About that time, we started developing off of the property. And so two different periods, but when the first period, 9 3/4, I put up about 50 boulder problems. It's about a mile away from the park, and ultimately it was my goal to get more of these secondary cliffs into the circuit of the Muscatatuck bouldering area. The Heightsman area, was another property. It actually was your home when you were a kid. So she gave us approval to climb on her property. But before doing that, she asked me to do a little research, look at the Indiana law. And so we look through the law, Indiana 14-22-10, and specifically it says the owner of a premises does not assume responsibility or incur liability if something happens. So this is the general recreational law for the state. Now we went to that next level and did the extreme sports, and we just thought that's one more level of protecting the county. And there's only other thing I think we might do is do waivers. And so when we climb a Red River, they're following the statutes. They're essentially the same as this. 2015 Rock Park was held. It was great fun and reasonably successful. Throughout time, had some harder climbers come by. Aaron Snyder kicked off the Long Stride Ivy League project. Next up was Alex McIntyre. He just got married. I believe he's in Arizona now, but he put up Road Dentistry V8, Stream of Doorknob V11, with Empty Hands V11, the Circuit du Soleil V10. So he became the area's hardest boulder. Also, we had routes put up by Carlos, Corey Cooper-Fetsky put up Requiem. I thought Blair might be here today. Unfortunately, his vector, he put up 4 or 5 new FAs in the last year prior to the area being closed. In anticipation of Strawberry Fields being secured relative to the Next Level Trails grant, I wanted to get a new guidebook out. Lived online until they closed climbing. Unfortunately, it took a bit, but it was fun. It was a fun project. 2019 Next Level Trails grant I got involved in. Ultimately, our department gave $150,000 for this grant, 60% of the match, to secure $1.3 million for the town of Vernon and to connect Vernon to Muscatatuck via the Strawberry Fields corridor. Of course, I jumped at the chance to secure Strawberry Fields. It wasn't our master plan for 20 years. And I have maintained the area for that duration. I tell you, if you're weed eating past Osiris all the way to Granite Boulder, it's not an easy job. But okay, I worked with the old mayor of Vernon and a small team to create this proposal. And although the Next Level Trails grant is generally not about climbing, if you look at page 122, climbing was clearly built into the grant. It's irrefutable. So, and Strawberry Fields was the main reason I got involved in the first place. It's my department to manage. Why did I get involved? To secure Strawberry Fields. And the facts show that Greg Martin made this grant happen and that Strawberry Fields was to be secured. 2020, Muscatatuck Park was recognized state tourism. It's one of the best venues for outdoor adventure. COVID came around, kind of threw everything under the bus, slowed definitely the Next Level Trails grant. And 2021, the grant was approved. The old mayor was stepping down. The new mayor came along, and just so happens to be park board president, managing a $150,000 grant. No conflict of interest, right? Right. So I started working with the ICC around this time. Much great work was accomplished. We appreciate you guys 100%. So there's a series of slides, I believe. So I think that was in the first cleanup, graffiti, very good work session there. Here we are, where we've got the trash pump out, using the Snot Rocket, a kid from Butler, I believe, raised $500, donated it to ICC, who donated it to us, and we still have some left in the basement. We appreciate that. Second cleanup, and then Rock the Park. Rock the Park was amazing. So relative to the ICC, it is always my goal to assist in the fundraising and help the ICC develop like the Red River Gorge Climbing Coalition. They're the model for the whole country. The climbers in Kentucky, we own 4 preserves, thousands of acres, thousands of climbs, and because they have recreational law just like we do in Indiana, we think we should be able to come back online at Muscatatuck Park. Also, the Columbus Rock Gym, stewards of the park, couple Earth Day cleanups, and yeah, that's a lot of trash for an afternoon, and it takes pressure off our staff, and it just shows community, shows what the climbers are really all about. But at the same time, we might. Okay. No, that's my bad, you're good. So this was actually Rock the Park. It was a great success, and the kids are definitely stronger than the old schoolers, and we appreciate it. So I think there's 4 slides. Max got an FA that day, which was pretty impressive, and Tom, he's a local kid, but go ahead, but it was a family event. So grandparents and grandkids all enjoying Muscatatuck Park. I think, and this might be about that same picture. So yeah, they're a crew from Bloomington, and that's what you do when you're bouldering is you assist your climbing partner to let them land where they need to land. So February 2023, I learned about the budgeting issues relative to the Next Level Trails grant and the plan. Yeah, you already got the article. Basically, the article was is talking. This was to the Indiana Parks and Rec Association. So it's basically talking about how climbing it's a simple activity. You run, you walk, you climb, you swim. It's elementary, and of course, you know we do it a little bit different than people would think. But it's a free resource, and we should be able to use it. About that same time, there was a mural in downtown North Vernon. That's kind of the history of Vernon, Jennings County, and of course, climber is itemized as a historic part of Jennings County. February 2023, Next Level Trails grant. I heard about the budgeting issues and the plan to eliminate strawberry fields. Got on the phone right away. Ultimately, it was explained reluctantly that the reason they're going to remove strawberry fields from the grant is there are $75,000 shortfall due to budgeting and engineering mistakes. On March 14th, I went to the county council and we did a PowerPoint presentation. And at the same time, we're doing trying to get grassroots support via Facebook. And on 4/11. At the county council meeting, the mayor / park board president presented, and by the end of that meeting, I was labeled the problem. So Greg Martin became the problem, even though page 122, which is here, is sitting on their desk, and it had a comprehensive overview of the grant. Unfortunately, the county council chose not to act. 9 days later, April 20th, climbing was closed to Muscatatuck Park. And I will note specifically, county's insurance runs from January 1st to 12/31. We were closed down in April 20th. 3 days after that, there was an impromptu personnel review. We'll go ahead and do a couple more. That's the last slide, I believe. 3 days later, there's an impromptu personnel review. My job was threatened. I was put on probation, which is not an element of the county park personnel. For what? Why was this happening? For doing my job. I was protecting the integrity of the grant that I created mostly, and my department made happen. It was the largest allocation in the JCPR non-inverted history. Subsequently, JCPR, at $150,000, we received nothing whatsoever did we get from this partnership. And unfortunately, we then lost perhaps our most unique and interesting aspect of the park. Thank you, Jennings County.
Thanks so much, Greg. You know, the park itself also has a bit of a special place for me, even though I live in Bloomington, not just because of the ICC here, but well, you guys, ICC people, are going to know. What happens to climbers that live in Indiana? Anybody? They leave. Yeah, they move. So I've had a few times some close friends where our last climb together was here at the park before they went somewhere where there were more options. Now we can't even do that. Anyway, if you were curious, a lot of what Greg mentioned, there's a history video that he also had in his slideshow, but it's linked here if anyone ever wants to check that out. Go ahead, next slide, please. All right, so as we know, it's been closed. The last screenshot was the website. I don't need to say much about that, but that's really the only blurb that's out there. What we did once we found that out, once we heard that it had been closed, our first step was to talk to the the board for the park, get some information. And that meeting mostly went well, and we were, everyone was very polite, very collaborative. Basically said out of our hands, it's the commissioners. If you could go to the next one, please. And then we go to the commissioners. It takes a while to finally get a hold of somebody, and when we do, they say it's out of our hands. It's it's insurance. And we saw the minutes, the video, where the insurance agent and the county attorney both recommend, or the county attorney recommends that we no longer have climbing here because the insurance agent was like, we're not going to cover you if you continue to do that. And that has been the line that we've heard anytime we've talked to any of the current commissioners. So what do we do from there? How do we get around that? Because honestly, if there are local municipalities all across the country that can have people climb, then surely there's a way to do it here. So we contact the Access Fund. I mentioned them earlier. This was before we were an affiliate of theirs. And they were like, yeah, okay, well, let's see if we can give them another option for insurance. They have a whole network. They help private and community landowners all across the country. So both we and our contacts at the Access Fund tried to reach out to insurance and the county attorney, and we never got any replies back. So we thought our next step was to try to put a little pressure politely in a spirit of collaboration on the local government to say, hey, this is like really important to people. There has to be a way to work around this problem, So that's where we are, and that's why we're here today, to try to share some of what we learned through that process with you. And well, we already mentioned the goals, but yeah, convince you to help us convince them that that's what we need. Next slide, please. Any questions so far? I know it's been a lot of information dump. Not a lot of where do we go, but so far just where are we? I mean, it can be a little overwhelming, but any questions, comments, concerns, considerations? Nothing. All righty, let's go ahead and move on then. You're supposed to wait 7 seconds. Those of you, I'm my day job, some of you already know, I'm a middle school teacher. And you're supposed to put the pressure on them so that somebody feels awkward enough that they're like, I'll say something because I can't stand this awkwardness. But I'm not going to do that because you guys, you're all adults, you're all good. All right, this picture. Like I said, I'll talk about each picture as we're here. This picture is from the Rock the Park that the ICC put on. Point of clarification, there's been 2 Rock the Parks here, one in 2015, way before the ICC was even a thought, and then one, well, at least our version of the ICC. We were the 3rd attempt to create a climber coalition in Indiana per national records, and we're the ones that did it, so yay. Let's see what else we can do. But there was a second Rock the Park that we put on just a couple years ago, and this was a picture from there. I want to point out, I don't want to steal Teri's thunder when she talks about in a moment the economic impact of climbing, but it's not just about the climbers. You look at this picture, this is only a sliver of the people that were there. Most climbers brought probably, 2.5 people on average with them, people who came and watched, their family members, whatever. There were a lot of non-climbers that came to that event just to be around the climbers that were coming for the competition. So we had some good numbers there, and talk about putting things into the local economy. We had a local band, 2 local bands, is that right?
One local, one from me.
Oh, gotcha. 1 local band, 1 still in the state band, who came, performed, that we paid, and all that good stuff to keep the festivities going after the climbing. So that's what that picture is from. But yeah, so why should you want people climbing here? Next slide, please. And I think, yes. Teri, it's your turn.
Okay, so I'm Teri Doran. Most of you can say anyway. So the economic impact resulting from visiting climbers can be significant. So let's have a look at it. Next slide. So for reference, first of all, we're comparing a couple of the climbing areas in the country to North Vernon as far as population. Bishop, California, population 3,819. Lander, Wyoming, 7,581. Newton County, Arkansas, 7,078. North Vernon, 6,562. So you see the climbing areas, they're not all in big cities. They're small town like us. And I feel like John Mellencamp when I say that, but yeah, here we are.
That's true.
Next slide. So take a deeper dive into it, looking at Newton County, Arkansas. The number of climbers who visited that community, which is a population of 7,000 roughly. Number of climbers, 39,610. 96% of the people that visited were visiting for climbing. The average amount they speculate was spent per climber is $84.02. That doesn't include lodging. So what's that add up to? $6,365,747 from climbing. That's a little bit of pocket change. So next one. So what could we expect from climbers visiting Jennings County? So if we took Bishop, Lander, Newton County, and we threw in Tennessee, climbing area there, Chattanooga mainly, and averaged those numbers out, we come up with $87.73 that could be expected from a climber visiting Muscatatuck Park. So the next slide. Oh, we're good. Okay, so looking at competitions. First, a little background, which Cliff has said a little bit about the Rock the Park Festival. The first one was held in 2015, and it was well attended. We had a climbing competition and an outdoor concert with our own Sounds of Summer that performed. It was basically organized by 3 people: Greg Martin, Teri, Doran, and Doran. And it was a lot of work for 3 people, but it still was successful. But since only 3 people worked on it, it took a while to have another one. That's when the ICC came in, and it was a perfect marriage. The ICC took it over in 2022. So if you look at the difference, the Kraken Classic, 625 participants, Rock the Park, 65. Don't let that number scare you. Here's the reasons. A climbing event is going to be based on the number of routes, the number of days, and the number of volunteers. So the Kraken Classic is a 3-day event. Rock the Park is a 1-day event. So that's a little different. Rock the Park could easily accommodate about 135 climbers in a 1-day event. So if you think about that, I mean, we had 65, that's 5,984 for a first event. The other thing, as Cliff was saying, climbers brought people with them. So as we started to plan for the 2023 event that couldn't take place, we decided we wanted to not make a climbing festival, we wanted to make a festival that had a climbing competition, because we wanted to include everyone, climbers and non-climbers. So we envisioned vendors, music, food trucks that could be enjoyed by everyone. So yeah, 135 participants, that's what we could handle in a competition, but a festival would bring in a lot more. And so, how could we make Jennings County a tourism destination? So we already know that climbers were coming from Purdue Outing Club, weekend after weekend. Butler climbing, regional visitors from Cincinnati, Louisville, Indy. One of the things that we had talked about in the ICC was to develop a scan code that would let climbers know where can they eat, where do you buy ice, what's going on. So just kind of envision this. We're going to go to Muscatatuck for the weekend to climb. Get on the scan code. Oh, we could go have dinner at our downtown. Main Street has really started to thrive down there. What's playing at this cool theater? Oh, it's a back-to-back concert, Fleetwood Mac tribute band. Let's go to that. My girlfriend doesn't climb. Oh, well, she could go to Perceptions and take an art class or yoga, or maybe take a hike at Cali, bring your kayaks, go on the river, or go out to Eco Lake Park, check it out. So what we know is the climbers were already coming. Now let's just market to them what all we have here, because we do have stuff here. Potential's there. Muscatatuck is a unique climbing area that we have. Don't shut it down. Embrace it and let it work for the county.
Thank you so much. Notice Teri's wearing one of the ICC shirts. She is one of our board members. Exceedingly helpful. It's so much easier since she came on board for us, taking care of so many things. Thank you so much. I want to take a moment just to talk about who are these climbers we keep talking about. Next slide, please. First of all, climbers are an extremely diverse group of people. There are some groups disproportionately represented in climbing, and you can probably guess who some of those are, but some of those that may be surprising, I thought I'd point out. There are other people in STEM, disproportionately in our board members as well, but also people with more disposable income. Climbing has gotten expensive like everything else. I mean, everything is expensive, right? But climbing is not as cheap for a lot of people as it used to be. Gym memberships are insane. So if you're going to a gym and climbing, you know, you got to have a little bit, because here in Indiana, there's not really many places to go outside, as we've already discussed. So if you're going to be climbing, it's people who have a little bit. Throwing that out there for hopefully obvious reasons. And then the other side of it, many of them are volunteers. Because there are so few places, they take care of those places. It's not just members of an organization like we are who take care of these places. It's pretty much all climbers. People are really good about local climbing ethics, and we could do a whole presentation on that, but I'll just leave it to the next slide. There's a little quote here we pulled from a study about climbers going to climbing destinations, basically saying that, like, the vast majority of climbers pack out what they pack in. Everyone takes good care of it. It's not the climbers who, you know, graffitied the park here. You know, we're the ones who cleaned it up. We take care of our stuff. And we're growing. There are a ton of climbers. I'm not going to read a wall of text at you. That's insane. But if you're curious, you want to read any of the stats, basically the important ones, even after the pandemic where so many other businesses were closing down, climbing gyms were still opening. There was a net gain in climbing gyms in the country. And we have annual growth of 6 to 7% each year growing. It is a growing sport. There are more and more people. It seems kind of regressive to be like, we're going to have fewer places. You know, these people want to go places. They're in gyms now. They want to go outdoors. A lot of them are just waiting to touch that real rock, you know. So a lot of opportunity there. Any questions so far? How many of you are counting this out right now? All right. Go ahead, next one then. All right, let's go ahead and have Dylan Kehres come on up, one of our committee members, talk to us a little bit about safety misconceptions.
Hey everyone, I'm Dylan. I'm a member of the ICC's Land Management Committee, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about climbing safety and some of the misconceptions. I'm by no means an expert on the subject, but it's something I do take really seriously and care a lot about. The standards for climbing safety have come a long way in recent years, from the old ways where climbers used to be considered dirtbags who threw caution to the wind and had a lot of dangerous practices. You'll see stories of people climbing these 3,000-foot walls without ropes or any safety devices. But the truth is that's a really small percentage of people that are engaging in those really, really dangerous practices. Most of us do care a lot, and we're really careful with what we do. There are organizations out there setting these standards, like the American Mountain Guides Association and the UIAA. They're out there telling people how to climb safely and teaching them to do it. Especially with climbing gyms being so popular these days, there are more and more people that are learning these safety skills just to keep these gyms open and keep themselves safe in the businesses that are allowing them to climb out there and running. And a lot of climbers can be expected to take those safety skills outside to the crag with them if they're coming out to Muscatatuck Park to climb, hopefully. The modern era of climbing has met the modern era of engineering, and there's a lot of technology that's being developed, whether it's assisted braking belay devices or just crash pads that interlock together to do whatever they can to help keep climbers safe. With the help of the American Mountain Guides Association, we're able to meet up with rock climbing guides that are able to educate us on how to use these different pieces of technology, different devices, and make sure we can stay as safe as we can out there climbing. Personally, I've had several encounters with guides just to make sure I know what I'm doing, because I want to keep on doing it. I don't want to get injured and get sidelined by it. So yeah, these efforts to mitigate risks can be pretty clearly seen in our statistics on climbing safety. Nearly every sport you engage in has some risk of injury, whether it's labeled an extreme sport or not. We all love our field sports, but those have risks of injury too. For every 1,000 hours of activity, soccer reports 7.7 injuries, and football has 8.1 injuries. Some mountain bikers may see as many as 16.8 injuries for 1,000 hours, and swimming has 4.0 injuries. Now, climbing comes in pretty close to swimming here with only 4.2 injuries for every 1,000 hours of exposure to climbing. That's just 0.2 different from swimming, which we all consider and really enjoy doing. And to top it all off, 93%, go to the next slide, 93% of these climbing-related injuries are from overuse. Climbers are out there hurting things like fingers, elbows, and shoulders because we're out there pulling really hard and putting so much strain on our bodies, joints, and ligaments. These aren't injuries that are occurring from falls or other major things, just things we even experience in the gym on a regular basis. So I really hope that you keep this information in mind when imagining people out here enjoying the many unique opportunities that Muscatatuck Park has to offer.
Thank you so much. All right, so we've talked a lot about the kind of the history of where we are, how we got here, and why we think climbing is good, both the economic side of things as well as the safety and community sides of things. So then how can it be opened? The line being insurance, it isn't covering it, we can't do it. Okay, why? Well, how can we do it? Like I said, I'm going to talk about each picture as we go. Sorry. This one was from that 2022 Rock the Park that we did. I just like this one. I think it's so cool. We're talking about like going into like well, I'm an optimist. You got to be an optimist if you work with kids, right? Or if you're in a nonprofit, there's a lot there. But you know, the sunlight coming through at the top. You know, I'm like, ooh, that's good for our like why we believe things can work out here. But I just think it's great. Look at all these people spotting him, and he's up on the thing. And it was just that's a cool route. That's very cool. Very. We have a credit slide at the end for Danny Morton, who took this picture and a handful of others. Yeah, I just like that one. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right, state laws and protections. First of all, next slide, really big, giant font. We are not lawyers, okay? As I said, the ICC came about because we had some lawyers who were interested in creating it, which like I wouldn't have made it through all the paperwork without them. Like they were awesome, but they moved to states where they can climb, so they're not part of the ICC anymore. So we don't have any lawyers on the board. So these things we're going to be talking about, you know, we're speaking to the best of our knowledge, but it is not legal advice. All right, next slide, please. So there were some papers back there. Some of you may have grabbed them. The IRUS, Indiana Recreational Use Statute, as it's often abbreviated in the case law that we were able to find, is primarily, it's very similar to most states. If you go to almost any state, is going to have some kind of outdoor rec statute or law that protects people who let people do outdoor rec on their property. And this is Indiana's version. Greg talked about it a little bit in his presentation, but if you're on our slides, you can always click there, and that takes you to a document on the Indiana state website that lists a little bit more. But what we're going to go ahead and talk about, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty because, again, we're not lawyers. We believe that the intent is so that people can do more outdoor rec. But we're going to look at some case law examples, which you'll be able to look at any of these that I'm about to talk about by following this link on your own time if you'd like. But for now, next slide. I think we have something like 5 or 6. I'm just going to talk about 3. The first one we have was a sledding accident. Some kids, I'm sure none of you would ever do something so reckless, tied a sled to the back of a car, and somebody was driving and they were like riding. Some of you are like, good times, man. No, I get it. Anyway, they got a little too rambunctious. They hit an embankment, got injured, and they're like, we're going to sue the landowner. They eventually got up to a certain level of the courts in Indiana, where the final decision came down and was like, you can't sue him. It's, you know, he's protected under the IRUS. And also, even though sledding wasn't specifically listed, or this kind of sledding wasn't specifically listed, that doesn't mean it's not protected. It's not a exhaustive list. They're more examples of types of activities. So whatever outdoor rec thing you may be doing, it's more about, is it outdoor rec, not is it specifically listed in the statute. Next one, please. Then we talk about mountain biking. Some of us were like, listen, mountain biking's big in the park, all right? It's big in the state. Some of us are mountain bikers. Some of us think it's really cool, but are worried they'll kill themselves if they try. So regardless, we don't want to throw the mountain bikers under the bus or under the mountain bike. However, we point out they're dangerous, and we're able to say that it's a dangerous activity, knowing that places are protected because of this one. So this particular case, there was an incident in Indianapolis at a park, and because of the way the laws work, you can't sue just the Parks and Rec, you sue the whole municipality. So they were suing the city of Indianapolis for the issue. This actually didn't use that outdoor rec statute that we've been talking about. Instead, they were like, hey, mountain biking is dangerous. You knew mountain biking was dangerous. You can't blame other people that you got hurt. And as we talked about, there's some misconceptions. A lot of people think climbing is pretty dangerous, and it can be. I mean, we know there was an accident. There's accidents all the time, but usually overuse. But it happens. One of the sombering things that I read, I shouldn't read it, I don't know why I do it. I do know why I do it. Some of you guys might as well. The American Alpine Club, like, accident report, like, oh my goodness. Some of the things in there, you know, we know it can be dangerous. So, like, I think this is a very apt case to point out, even if it's not using the state statute that we were talking about. All right, go ahead and go to the next one. And then we have one that did use the state statute against the state. So the state itself, or not against, the state used it in their defense. The state was being sued because of a watercraft incident on a state reservoir, and they were able to be protected. The state, even though it was a restricted area even, they were like, you're not supposed to be out here. That's recreation use statute still protected the state in this case. So like I said, there's a few other examples, but we just wanted to point out a few cases where, even though we haven't found any climbing examples yet where anyone's tried to use it, probably because there's not very much opportunity to climb in the state, we were still able to find some that we think were worth sharing with all of you. Next slide, please. There's also supplemental insurance options. I mentioned briefly that the Access Fund was trying to work with us and help us out here, and reached out to the insurance agent and county attorney. But the reason they were doing that is because they have their own insurance. It's not theirs, but they have their own providers that they will put local landowners into contact with and work with them to work something out so that people can climb. It's something, I mean, it's what they do. That's their whole thing, is getting climbing across the country, and one of the ways they do it is by protecting people with liability. So that is a conversation to be had. Next slide, please. But let's take a brief moment. Like I said, Jennings County, there's climbing all over the country. It should be able to happen here too. So what are those other places doing? Most of them actually don't have insurance. That surprised me when I first learned it, because insurance was such a hang-up for this particular situation. But most crags don't have insurance at all, because they are utilizing those other local state statutes. Most of them are protected because of laws like that, and they don't feel the need to have any supplemental insurance. Again, every state's a little different, but we feel ours is similar enough that this is a conversation worth having. Speaking of conversations, we put out a form. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but we put out a form and asked people how they felt about all of this, and we had some great responses. So Dylan's going to go ahead and share some of those.
All right, yeah, as Cliff mentioned, we put out a link for people to share their thoughts and speak on behalf of reopening Muscatatuck Park to climbing. There were a ton of responses, but for sake of time, I've just picked out 5 that I'm going to share with you here today, and some of the key quotes will be up in the slide, but I'll be reading the whole testimonial for you. All right, so the first one reads, Muscatatuck is a hidden gem of Indiana. I grew up in Switzerland County and later moved to West Virginia for work. Whenever I visit family, I make sure to drive the extra hours to visit Muscatatuck and climb on the wonderful limestone features. It is a truly unique destination. Nowhere else in the Midwest, nor most of the East Coast, can you find limestone climbing of this concentration and quality. All right, for the second testimonial, they said, rock climbing is a fun, healthy activity, not just for the individual, but for the entire family, that is quickly growing in popularity. Other towns are paying to build climbing spaces for the public to enjoy. Meanwhile, Jennings County's free natural resources are being prohibited to the community and to visitors. It's a growing sport, and a lot of people are looking for places to climb. That's what brought us here today, right? So for the third testimonial, they said, over the years, our family has made special trips from Louisville, Kentucky to go bouldering at beautiful Muscatatuck Park. This has brought us to Jennings County and the town of North Vernon at least a few dozen times between the years of 2017 and 2023. During these trips, we would also stop at local businesses, gas up our cars, enjoy the river and trails of Muscatatuck Park, and we'd even stop at residents' yard sales. Recently, we discovered that rock climbing has been suspended at the park. Since it is the primary draw of our trips to the area, we will no longer be visiting Jennings County, North Vernon, or Muscatatuck Park. This is very disheartening. Muscatatuck Park is the nearest bouldering crag to our city, and we truly enjoy traveling to your town. The restriction of rock climbing in Muscatatuck Park is short-sighted. The sport of bouldering is growing exponentially each year, and natural climbing crags are a limited resource. To have climbable limestone walls is incredibly unique in this region. The longer the park restricts bouldering, the dirtier the routes will become, they'll be forgotten, and it may never turn back into the destination for visitors. We hope you'll seriously consider reestablishing climbing access in Muscatatuck Park. A lot of work has gone into these walls. They are naturally occurring, but that work will be undone over the years as nature reclaims them. But we want to work here with everybody and take care of this amazing natural resource we have. All right, testimonial number 4. Muscatatuck Park has been a big part of my life since 2018. Whether it's with my dog or a large group of friends and family, any day I can get out by the river and do some climbing is a cherished memory. I've organized park cleanups, climbing meetups, and casual non-climbing days at Muscatatuck Park because I love protecting and sharing the space. Muscatatuck is the most unique park in the area due to its accessibility to safe climbing. I believe it would be a waste of natural terrain to continue this prohibition of climbing. If prohibitions in the past have taught us anything, is that a prohibition is not a form of regulation. It is giving up the regulation to those who wish to take advantage of the circumstances. It criminalizes stewards and allows undesirable motivations to fill in the space. To protect natural landscape, it is important that the people that care for its preservation are allowed to practice safe recreation in those landscapes. And that's certainly something that we plan to do as the ICC, is come to Muscatatuck Park and keep it clean and keep it a beautiful park for everybody to enjoy, even if we're not around climbing in it on that particular day. All right, and the last testimonial I have to read for you is written by the director of DINO, Do Indiana Off-Road, which is the leading producer of trail running and mountain bike racing in Indiana. As a result, I have spent a great deal of time in most of Indiana's state parks, state recreation areas, state forests, and national forests. Muscatatuck County Park is a unique and special place. One of the biggest reasons is that it is the only designated legal natural place to rock climb and boulder. While climbing is only a minor part of DINO's activities held in Muscatatuck, climbing and bouldering is a vital aspect to those people who put these activities highest on their outdoor recreation list. Jennings County has exactly what is needed to be a vibrant community of outdoor enthusiasts and should embrace it to the fullest. The combination of mountain bike trails, hiking, camping, river paddling, and climbing could create a true outdoor adventure hub. Its draw brings customers for your local restaurants, lodging, and other businesses. There is no place that is like this in Indiana. Use it to your advantage. I think those are really well put words. We have an amazing resource here that I'm really excited to reopen and get to enjoy for myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we've talked a lot about various things. Hopefully we made some good points. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of action items, what we do moving forward. Some of you have already done some of what we'll ask you to do. But before we get into that, I wanted to take a moment and see if anybody had any other comments, not just like questions, but anything they want to share. Any of our people who maybe joined virtually, if there's anything you don't want to like talk, you can also put it in the chat. Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier to everyone else, that we have people who joined us virtually, and it's part of why we have the camera and the microphone and all that jazz. But yeah, anybody, anything at all that they'd like to share out before we talk about our next steps and where we go from here and where we go after that?
Are there prospects to look at like any other spots in Indiana for like ICC and things like that?
Oh yeah. So, oh man. See, I get in trouble with this part. This is a problem because you can't talk about some of the stuff because you don't want people to like start going to these other places until it's actually opened and all of that. So you got to keep the details a little bit light because you don't want to encourage trespassing or anything like that. Right now, especially, a lot of the Indiana climbers are just starved for the real rock, like putting their hands outside and all of that. But man, you get me going. Someone stops me at the gym, for example, and they ask me what we're up to. I'll blab. I'll say everything. There's a place down the road actually. But, hey, no, I got stop. I gotta be careful. But yes, we have a spreadsheet worth of places that we've identified. A lot of locations that I'm very excited about. I think it's probably fair to say this part. We're looking at trying to, instead of open up places permanently, that's like a hard pill for some people to swallow. Try to open up places for just events. See if we can get like just hey, can we like use your spot for a weekend, and see if we can get people more comfortable with the climbing community that way. Get those places opened up more slowly, but still getting that chance, and tie those to fundraisers for various charities, not just ICC. So that's one of the things we're looking at right now. But yeah, we have a list of places. Our land management committee has done a handful of little like, we found a spot, we're gonna go check it out and assess how viable it is. So there are certainly other places that we're looking at, and you know, when the ICC started, we really took this place for granted. That would have been a good place for a pun, for granted. You know, most people would have just thought I was mispronouncing it. But we really did. We were like, you know, the work that Greg had put into this place, you know, the way that it was, we just assumed this would be our home base moving forward for like whatever. We host like a competition here every year, and then we use those funds that we raise at that competition to help us open up other places. And that's really, we really felt like the rug got pulled out from under us when climbing was closed here. And yeah, I thought we would be spending all of our time looking at new places and opening them up. So we had about a year there where we were, you know, it wasn't a full year, but almost where we were just like, what do we do? This has totally changed our structure and what we thought we would be doing. So a lot of our plans to open up some of those other places were put on pause as we kind of got our feet back under us and did a lot of what we've talked about so far today. Because I mean, we're all just volunteers. Every one of us has a day job. We do other things. We just love the sport, so we do what we can to help out to try to get places open. So that was a very long answer. Short answer, yes, there are other places, and we probably would have made more headway with them by now had this not happened. Anything in chat? All right. I'm going to take that to mean we've just been really thorough. All right, next slide then. So here's what we want. How can we change the minds of the decision makers? Because that's really what it boils down to. We need to change some people's minds. Next slide, please. And since it's the commissioners who are like, hey, it's insurance, I don't know if we can change insurance's mind, but maybe we can find some other stuff. We want to ask the commissioners to find a way. You know, we're like I said, we're optimistic people. Show them that this matters and convince them that there is a way that this can be done. And hopefully we've shared enough of that with you that you believe there's a conversation worth being had. So there's a link here to the letter writing info that takes you to our website where it'll talk about some of this in the next few slides here. So if we can jump into the next one. We have 5 steps for you guys. Here's the quiz. I told you there was a quiz coming. You guys were waiting. You're like, where is it? Where was this picture taken from? That's like impossible. I will be shocked. You get a shirt. If anyone gets this right now, you take your pick of any of the shirts.
Chocolate vinegar milk.
Oh my gosh, Teri, you get a shirt. All right. Yeah, top of Vinegar Mill. We're in the shelter, looking out over the creek runs down here. The stairs are like kind of off here. If you uncrop this, there's a handful of us walking down the stairs with our buckets and brooms about to clean off some graffiti. I was just like, I wanted some green in there. That's good. Well done.
I have all the shirts.
I know. That's
other choices.
You should have whispered to somebody else. But yeah, that's like I said, all the pictures came from the park here. So we want to write some letters. Emails are easy to ignore. We want to show like this is something we're taking time to write. It's not just a like click a button, send it on kind of thing. We printed a bunch of stuff for you guys out there, and also like I said, links to the website where you can print your own as well, or you can send other people here if there was. So someone who's not here that you're like, hey, they'd really be about this, you can take some of the supplies with you. or share that link with them. And basically, we have 4 addresses, the commissioners and the shared PO box that's at one of the municipal buildings for each letter that you want to write. So like, you could probably write 8 if you wanted, depending on who you are, 4 there. But we have 2 types of letters. This is why I said you do update. If you're a local resident of Jennings County, we have one template for you. If you're a member of the climbing community, we have a separate template for you. If you're both, you probably do both if you want. But you're going to take those, grab an envelope, stamp, address label. We have the address labels printed out for you. Put it all together. Go ahead and go on to the next one. When you put it all together, we ask you on the bottom of it, you add some stuff here, all right? Sign it, make it like you're a real person, all that good stuff. We don't want them being like, man, the ICC just sent us a bunch of the same letter. Do something, put your name on it, please, and print it so that they know I'm not just like trying out, writing with different hands or whatever, trying my toes, I don't know. Contact info if you'd like, business organization if you'd like, and then maybe some personal message if you'd like. If this isn't your jam, if you see the templates and you're like, I don't want these people speaking for me, we also have just blank paper and some little postcard kind of things you can write on, put in envelopes too if you'd like. Next slide, please. We will go ahead and, whatever it is, whether you write it yourself, use one of our templates, we will go ahead and mail it for you. So we have a little basket in the back as well where you can drop those letters. And hey, like I said, take some of the extra stuff. All right, take it with you. Give it, if you think, for example, some of you may be coming from another area that has a climbing gym, it might be a real good place to take one of those, write a letter, and stick some of these things on the countertop of the gym and get some of those local climbers to write some of these letters and send them out as well. Or at least maybe put up a QR code to the website. Next slide, please. Any questions on that bit? Moving forward then, we also have the city website. Should say county website. Sorry. We have a county website where you can find more contact info as well as meetings if you're interested in contacting commissioners other ways or showing up at any meetings or anything like that to share stuff. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And what happens after this? Obviously we're hoping that this letter writing campaign will be enough that people are like, hey, okay, cool, let's go ahead and find a way to do this. But if not, we'll have something else coming up. We have some potential ideas, but Facebook, Instagram, these link to our socials. Follow us there. We'll send stuff out as the situation continues to develop. And you can also, stamps. I was shocked. I don't know, I haven't mailed a letter in I don't know how long. So I've had like the sheet of stamps that has lasted me legitimately 10 years. So for this event, I'm like, well, we're gonna need more than the 3 stamps I have left. So I go to the post office, get a few rolls, and I'm like, they're what? So I don't know if you guys have bought stamps recently, but it shocked me. So all that to say, supplies cost money, organization, all this, everything we've done here, everything's expensive. So consider donating if you believe in what we're doing. We have some links there, some QR codes where it takes you to our website that links you to our PayPal where you can drop us a donation if you'd like, if you believe in what we're doing and want to help us out a little bit more. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. I think we have maybe one more slide. That's just oh yeah, there we go. One more. So again, links to slides if you want to be able to get to any of those links that we mentioned. My contact info up there if anyone wants to talk to me directly. But thank you. I didn't really say it earlier. It was up on the thing, but thank you guys, everyone who came out here so much for coming, hearing what we had to say, being a part of it. Selfish reasons. I really want to see this place open back up because I don't want to drive 3 hours to be able to climb outside. Or I know some of you guys are like, there's stuff in Hoosier National, why don't you go out there? But it's just, I have to drive a few hours. But there's some good stuff out there. I'm being a snob. Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, well, that's all I have. I'll be here, moving around, all that jazz. Like I said, take extra stuff. Also, to entice you to write some letters, there's some candy and snacks in the middle of all the letter writing stuff. So, we've been sitting a while. Some of you guys, I know, you're going to want to grab one of those little candies. Well, thank you all so much for everything you've done here.